Trevor Bishop stared at his phone screen, his thumb hovering over the banking notification that had just popped up. It read, "Transaction declined, 4500 at Velvet and Gold Boutique." He was sitting in a modest diner eating a $5 breakfast, while his girlfriend, Chloe, was across town trying to buy a designer handbag on his dime. The conflict didn't start today, but today was the day Trevor decided he was done being an open wallet. He had intentionally locked the joint credit card an hour ago, tired of watching his hard-earned money vanish into luxury stores while she constantly complained about his lack of free time. Trevor was a 42-year-old single dad who had built his logistics company from a single leased truck. He knew the value of a dollar, and he knew the warning signs of a woman who only valued him for what he could provide. His phone buzzed wildly. It was Chloe. He let it ring twice before answering, keeping his voice perfectly steady. "Trevor, what is wrong with your card?" Chloe snapped, not bothering with a greeting. Her voice was sharp, echoing slightly as if she were pacing in a quiet, expensive room. "The cashier just looked at me like I was a beggar. You are completely humiliating me in front of my friends." Trevor took a slow sip of his black coffee. Watching the diner waitress wipe down the counter, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't apologize. If you love stories about underdogs being humiliated but suddenly turning the tables, subscribe to the channel now. We share a new story every day. "The card isn't broken, Chloe," Trevor explained calmly. "I locked it. We need to have a serious talk about our finances when I get home tonight." "Excuse me," Chloe scoffed, her tone dripping with disbelief and entitlement. "You locked it while I'm out shopping with Vanessa. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Unlock it right now." "Trevor, I am not leaving this store empty-handed because you suddenly decided to be cheap. It stays locked," Trevor replied, feeling a cold clarity wash over him. "I'm heading to the warehouse. We will discuss this later." He ended the call before she could scream again. Trevor didn't feel angry. He felt exhausted. He had spent the last 8 months hoping Chloe would step up, hoping she would show some interest in his daughter, Lily, or his life beyond the bank statements. Instead, she treated his home like a hotel and his accounts like a trust fund. It was time to find out exactly who he was sharing his life with. The test had officially begun. When Trevor arrived at his suburban home that evening, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Chloe was sitting on the living room sofa, her arms crossed tight against her chest, her designer luggage visible in the hallway closet. She didn't look up when he walked in. She simply waited for an apology that Trevor had no intention of giving. He placed his briefcase on the kitchen island and loosened his tie. He had spent the afternoon setting the stage for what he was about to do. He had instructed his finance director to temporarily freeze a few minor operational accounts and shift some funds around. It was a harmless internal maneuver, but on paper, it looked like a company bracing for impact. "Are you going to explain why you humiliated me today?" Chloe demanded, finally standing up. Trevor looked her in the eyes, his expression solemn. "I didn't lock the card to embarrass you, Chloe. I locked it because we have a cash flow problem. A serious one." She frowned, the anger in her face momentarily replaced by confusion. "What are you talking about? You own a logistics company. You always have money." "What? We lost the Miller contract this morning." Trevor lied smoothly, referring to his biggest client. "They pulled out, and without them, the bank is reviewing our credit line. I had to freeze the joint accounts to ensure payroll goes through next week. Things are going to be very tight for a while. We might even have to downsize the house." Trevor watched her closely, searching for any flicker of empathy. He waited for her to ask how he was holding up, or how this would affect his daughter, Lily. He waited for a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Instead, Chloe's face hardened into a mask of pure panic. She took a step back. "Downsize, Trevor. What about my trip to Milan next month? The flights are already booked." "We'll have to cancel them," Trevor stated simply. "I need every dollar to keep the business afloat." Chloe paced the room, running her hands through her hair. "This is a joke. You're telling me you're going broke just like that?" "I'm telling you we need to be a team right now," he corrected gently. She stopped pacing and looked at him. Not with support, but with a cold, calculating distance. "I can't believe this is happening to me," she murmured. Trevor kept his face neutral, but inside, his heart sank. The truth was glaringly obvious. She wasn't worried about him. She was mourning the loss of her personal ATM. He didn't argue. He just walked past her to check on his daughter, leaving Chloe alone with the reality of a manufactured crisis. The sound woke Trevor just after dawn. It was a sharp, distinct noise, the heavy zip of a large canvas bag being forced shut. He lay in bed for a moment, listening to the hurried footsteps in the guest bedroom down the hall, where Chloe had chosen to sleep the night before. He got up, pulled on a sweater, and walked out into the corridor. Chloe was dragging her largest suitcase toward the staircase. She had a thick coat draped over her arm, and her handbag clutched tightly to her chest. When she saw Trevor, she froze, a fleeting look of guilt crossing her face before it hardened back into defensiveness. "Going somewhere?" Trevor asked, leaning against the doorframe. His voice was completely devoid of surprise. Chloe avoided his eyes, focusing instead on the handle of her luggage. "My friend Vanessa is going through a really tough breakup. She needs me right now. I'm going to stay at her place in the city for a few days." It was a flimsy excuse, constructed in haste and delivered poorly. Trevor knew Vanessa wasn't going through a breakup. He also knew that a woman rushing to comfort a friend didn't pack 3 pairs of designer heels and empty her jewelry box. "I see," Trevor responded quietly. "And you feel this is the best time to leave, right when my company is facing a crisis." Chloe finally looked at him, her expression a mix of pity and irritation. "Trevor, I can't fix your company. I'm stressed enough as it is. You've completely ruined my month with this bank issue, and I just need some space to breathe. You should focus on your warehouse, not me." Trevor didn't beg her to stay. He didn't remind her of the promises she had made just a week ago when everything was comfortable. He simply stepped aside and gestured toward the stairs. "Take all the time you need, Chloe," he said calmly. He walked her down to the front door and watched her struggle to load the heavy suitcase into the trunk of her car. She didn't look back as she drove away. Trevor closed the front door and locked the deadbolt. He felt a strange sense of relief wash over him. The manufactured bankruptcy had cost him nothing, but it had saved him from wasting years on the wrong woman. The gold digger had bailed at the first sign of rain, exactly as he suspected she would. The atmosphere at the Bishop Logistics warehouse was tense. By mid-morning, the rumor Trevor had carefully planted was circulating through the loading docks and office cubicles. Employees were whispering by the coffee machine, glancing nervously toward his glass-walled office. Trevor sat at his desk, reviewing actual, healthy financial reports, waiting to see who else would show their true colors. A sharp knock broke his concentration. Sarah, his operations manager, stood in the doorway. She was a 35-year-old single mother who had started as a dispatcher and worked her way up through sheer competence. Unlike Chloe, Sarah never cared about luxury brands or status. She cared about getting the trucks out on time. "Do you have a minute, Trevor?" she asked, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. "Have a seat," Trevor offered, closing his laptop. "I assume you've heard the rumors?" Sarah sat down, placing a neat, color-coded folder on his desk. She didn't look panicked, just intensely focused. "I heard we lost Miller and that the accounts are frozen. I also noticed the finance team stopped processing the new truck leases this morning." Trevor nodded slowly. "And are you here to hand in your resignation before the ship sinks?" Sarah frowned, genuinely offended by the question. "I'm here to do my job. Trevor, I spent the last 2 hours running the numbers. If we suspend the new equipment upgrades, cut the executive catering, and renegotiate our fuel supply contracts, we can absorb the loss of the Miller account without laying off a single driver." She opened the folder, pushing a spreadsheet toward him. "I also factored in a 20% pay cut for myself and the other department heads for the next quarter. It's temporary, but it gives us the runway we need." Trevor stared at the spreadsheet, genuinely moved. He hadn't expected this. Chloe, the woman who shared his bed, had packed her bags and fled within 12 hours to protect her shopping habits. Sarah, a woman who owed him nothing but a day's work, was voluntarily offering up her own salary to protect the warehouse workers. "You would take a pay cut for this company?" Trevor asked quietly. "This company paid for my son's braces last year when my insurance fell short," Sarah replied firmly. "You didn't abandon your people then. We aren't abandoning you now. Just tell me what you need me to do." Trevor looked at the numbers, a deep sense of gratitude settling in his chest. "Thank you, Sarah. Leave this with me. I promise you, nobody is losing their job." While Sarah was busy trying to save a company that wasn't actually failing, Chloe was across town, securing her own future. She sat in a secluded booth at a high-end downtown restaurant, nervously tapping her manicured nails against a crystal water glass. Across from her sat Marcus Vance, the owner of a rival logistics firm that had been trying to undercut Trevor for years. Marcus swirled his espresso, looking highly amused. "So, let me get this straight. Trevor Bishop, the golden boy of local freight, is going under... He lost the Miller contract." Chloe lied smoothly, leaning forward. "His accounts are frozen. He's panicking. Marcus, the company will be bankrupt by the end of the month. He's liquidating assets." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And why are you telling me this? Shouldn't you be holding his hand through this difficult time?" Chloe let out a short, cynical laugh. "I don't do sinking ships. I'm looking out for myself. Trevor is finished, but his remaining client list is still highly valuable. The delivery routes, the pricing structures, the renewal dates, I have all of it." She reached into her designer handbag and placed a small silver flash drive on the table. She had copied the files from Trevor's home office laptop late last night while he was asleep. She assumed she was holding a gold mine. Marcus looked at the drive, his eyes gleaming with greedy interest. "How much do you want for it?" "I don't want cash," Chloe corrected, her ambition fully unmasked. "I want a consulting position at your firm. A comfortable salary, full benefits, and a signing bonus. If you have Trevor's pricing models, you can swoop in and steal every single one of his remaining clients before he even officially files for bankruptcy." Marcus picked up the flash drive, turning it over in his fingers. He had always hated Trevor's principled way of doing business. The idea of destroying his rival and acquiring a ready-made client base was too good to pass up. "You're ruthless, Chloe. I like that." Marcus smiled coldly. "I'll have my tech guys verify the data this afternoon. If it's legitimate, we have a deal. Consider yourself employed." Chloe smiled back, victorious. She felt brilliant. She had successfully escaped a sinking ship and landed on a luxury yacht. She had no idea that Trevor had never left the helm. Trevor was reviewing the warehouse safety logs when his desk phone rang. It was David, his lead IT administrator. "Hey, Trevor," David started, sounding a bit confused. "I was running the routine security sweep, and I flagged an anomaly from your home network last night. Someone accessed the master client database at 2 in the morning and initiated a local download to an external drive. Was that you working late?" Trevor sat back in his chair, the pieces instantly clicking together. Chloe hadn't just packed her clothes, she had packed his company's data. The realization didn't make him furious, it made him hyper-focused. He didn't yell or smash his fist on the desk. He simply moved to neutralize the threat. "It wasn't me, David," Trevor answered steadily. "Listen carefully. I need you to initiate a total protocol rotation immediately." "A full rotation?" David asked, surprised. "That's going to invalidate all the current access codes and pricing links." "Exactly," Trevor confirmed. "Change the encryption keys on the client portal. Update the pricing models to the new quarter rates we planned for next month. By the time anyone tries to open that downloaded file, I want the data inside to be completely obsolete." "Consider it done." "Anything else?" "Yes. Wipe the remote access privileges for the home network," Trevor ordered. After hanging up, Trevor pulled out his personal laptop. He logged into his property management account. Chloe had been using a downtown studio apartment paid for by Trevor as her creative space for social media. Trevor pulled up the lease agreement, verified his sole ownership, and sent a brief email to the building manager, terminating the guest access card under Chloe's name. He didn't call her to scream about betrayal. He didn't hire a lawyer to threaten her. He simply locked the doors she used to walk through. Chloe thought she had stolen the keys to his kingdom, but Trevor had just changed all the locks. He leaned forward, opened his email, and continued his workday. The trap was set, and all he had to do was wait for her to walk right back into it. 3 days after she walked out, Chloe returned to the suburban house. She arrived in the early afternoon, dressed immaculately, carrying a leather folio instead of luggage. She walked up to the front door, brimming with false confidence, and inserted her key. It wouldn't turn. She frowned, rattling the handle aggressively. Before she could knock, the door opened. Trevor stood there, dressed in a casual sweater, holding a mug of coffee. He looked completely unbothered, which momentarily threw her off balance. "You changed the locks?" she asked, her voice tight with offense. "You moved out. Chloe?" Trevor pointed out mildly. "I secure my property. What are you doing here?" Chloe quickly adjusted her posture. putting on a mask of deep, manufactured sympathy. I came because I care about you, Trevor. I know I left abruptly, but I just needed a clear head to figure out a way to help you. And I did. Trevor stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. You found a way to help me. Yes, she said, walking into the kitchen and placing her folio on the island. She unzipped it and pulled out a thick stack of stapled papers. I reached out to some contacts in the industry. I found an angel investor willing to buy out Bishop Logistics and take on your debts. It's a clean exit. Trevor, you won't have to declare bankruptcy. Trevor stepped closer, glancing down at the document. The logo at the top of the page belonged to Vance Freight Marcus's company. It was an aggressive buyout offer, structured to strip Trevor of his assets for pennies on the dollar, assuming he was desperate for a lifeline. Marcus Vance wants to buy me out, Trevor murmured, keeping his tone perfectly flat. He's willing to do you a favor, Chloe insisted, stepping closer and placing a hand on his arm. Sign it. Trevor, walk away with whatever cash he's offering. We can take the money and start over. I'm doing this for us. Trevor looked at her hand resting on his arm. He felt absolutely nothing. The performance was flawless, but he already knew she was holding a script written by a thief. Trevor picked up the buyout contract. He didn't throw it in her face or tear it up dramatically. Instead, he pulled a red pen from the kitchen drawer, flipped to the second page, and circled a massive typo in the liability clause. Marcus always was sloppy with his paperwork, Trevor noted dryly, sliding the document back across the marble counter. I'm not signing this, Chloe. Chloe's sympathetic mask slipped, revealing a flash of genuine panic. Trevor, don't let your ego ruin your life. You have no leverage here. Your accounts are frozen. You lost the Miller contract. If you don't take this deal, the bank will take everything. Trevor took a slow sip of his coffee. That's the thing, Chloe. The Miller contract wasn't canceled. In fact, they renewed it yesterday morning for double the volume. The bank isn't seizing anything. We just closed on a new warehouse on the south side. Chloe froze. The air in the kitchen seemed to vanish. She stared at him, her mouth slightly open, trying to process the information. What, but? You told me you were going broke. The credit card was declined. I told the bank to lock the card, Trevor corrected softly. I told my finance director to freeze the internal accounts to see who would panic. I wanted to see what would happen if the money stopped flowing. You lied to me, she whispered, her voice trembling not from heartbreak, but from the sudden realization of her massive miscalculation. You tested me. I just stopped pretending to be blind, Trevor replied calmly. I wanted to see if you were a partner, or just a passenger waiting for a better ride. You packed your bags in under 12 hours. Chloe's mind raced. If Trevor wasn't bankrupt, then the buyout offer from Marcus was completely useless. Worse, her consulting job with Marcus depended on her delivering a desperate, ruined rival. Trevor, you can't blame me for being scared, she pleaded, quickly trying to pivot back to playing the victim. I panicked, but I came back. I tried to find a solution. You didn't find a solution, Trevor stated, his voice dropping a full octave, cold and absolute. You found a buyer for the data you stole from my office. Chloe physically recoiled, her face draining of all color. I don't know what you're talking about. My IT department logs every remote download, Trevor explained, leaning against the counter. I know you copied the client database onto a flash drive at 2 in the morning. I know you took it straight to Marcus to secure a job for yourself. Chloe opened her mouth to deny it, but the terrifying calm in Trevor's eyes stopped her. He wasn't guessing. He had the receipts. But here's the beautiful part, Trevor continued. Valid Watson wants to stop window by pedos and sandwich nitsawa, setting his mug down. The data you gave Marcus is completely useless. The moment I saw the download alert, I ordered a full protocol rotation. We changed the access codes, updated the pricing models, and migrated the portal. All Marcus has is a list of names and a bunch of dead links. You didn't hand him my company. You handed him garbage. Chloe backed away toward the hallway. Her entire plan had collapsed into dust. She had betrayed a wealthy man for a rival who would now realize she was completely useless. You set me up, she accused, her voice turning shrill. You set yourself up, Trevor corrected firmly. I just gave you the rope. By the way, the downtown studio lease has been revoked. Your access card won't work there either. You can't do that, she screamed, her polished exterior completely shattering. My equipment is in there. The building manager boxed it up this morning. You can pick it up at the front desk, Trevor replied. He pointed toward the front door. We have nothing left to discuss. Take your buyout contract and leave my house. Chloe stood there for a long moment, breathing heavily, searching for an angle, a threat, a way back in. But there was nothing. Trevor held all the cards, the accounts, the property, and the truth. Without another word, she snatched the useless contract off the counter and stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Trevor didn't flinch. He walked over and quietly slid the deadbolt locked. The fallout was swift and quiet. By Friday, Trevor learned through industry whispers that Marcus Vance had furiously rescinded his job offer to Chloe. Marcus had attempted to use the stolen data to pitch Trevor's clients, only to discover the pricing was wrong and the access codes were entirely fabricated. Humiliated in front of major distributors, Marcus cut all ties with Chloe, leaving her without a job, a sponsor, or a luxury apartment. She had gambled everything on a lie and walked away empty-handed. Trevor didn't waste a second celebrating her downfall. He had a company to run. On Monday morning, Trevor walked into the warehouse office. The atmosphere was completely different. The anxiety had vanished, replaced by a renewed sense of energy. Trevor called Sarah into his office and handed her a new contract. I don't understand, Sarah said, reading the document. This isn't a pay cut. It's a promotion to Director of Operations, Trevor explained, smiling genuinely for the first time in weeks. Along with a 20% raise and a performance bonus, you were willing to sacrifice your own livelihood to protect the drivers when you thought we were going under. That's the kind of leadership this company needs. Sarah looked up, her eyes bright with unshed tears. She didn't offer a dramatic speech, just a firm handshake. Thank you, Trevor. I won't let you down. I know you won't, he replied. That evening, Trevor returned to a quiet, peaceful home. There were no designer bags cluttering the hallway, no complaints about canceled vacations, and no tension hanging in the air. He walked into the living room and sat down on the rug next to his daughter, Lily, who was busy building a massive Lego castle. Hey, Dad, she smiled, handing him a blue brick. Can you help me fix the roof? Absolutely, Trevor said, taking the piece and snapping it into place. He took a deep breath, feeling lighter than he had had in months. He had tested his life, and the weak links had broken themselves. He didn't need to yell, seek revenge, or fight in court. He had simply established a boundary and watched the trash take itself out. He was exactly where he needed to be, surrounded only by people who truly deserved to be there. If you enjoyed this story about setting boundaries and letting true colors reveal themselves, please subscribe now. We bring you a fresh, satisfying story every single day. Drop a comment below telling us how you would have handled the flash drive theft. Would you have stayed as calm as Trevor? Thank you so much for watching until the very end, and we will see you in the next video.